Hello, this is 52 Weeks Live. I am Alexa Hampton, and today, for the second time, I am trying to invite the incredible Eddie Lee to join me on this live.
Hi!
Right? We both had to click off. That was the
I thought
trick.
it was me, and I actually had to call Ginny earlier to figure out how to do this because I've never done this.
No, but it prompted me. It said you were trying to join, all these good things. So, hello, and
Hi,
so
welcome.
nice to see you.
Well, nice to see you. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Where were you?
Utah. It was
I'm
a
flying there.
quickie. What?
Where in Utah are you working?
Deer Valley, and
Okay.
I'm very excited. But let's talk about you, Eddie.
Oh, yes.
Don't try and pull that stuff with me.
Yeah, let's talk about. Well, I'll be
yeah.
in Park City next week.
Are you?
One of my random story, which
I love a random story.
I love random stories. On my freshman hall at Vanderbilt, I don't know why my screen keeps going like down. So I'm gonna keep touching it. I touch it.
Okay.
So on my freshman hall at Vanderbilt, I met this guy. We became really good friends, and then he transferred to Texas his sophomore year, and then we just kept in touch. And randomly, can I be a little like give you a little story? Can it be a little like racy, a little bit?
If somebody doesn't want to hear it, all they have to do is not listen.
So then cut to 1998 or something in a club in Miami. I'm going to the bathroom. Someone taps me on the shoulder. I'm like, what? It's my friend from the freshman year that I hadn't talked to in like 5 years.
So first of all, I would like to stop you and tell you that it's so weird to me to hear the words, I was going to the bathroom and somebody tapped me on my shoulder.
No. I was walking
woman,
in the restroom.
That simply doesn't happen.
I wasn't in the process of
that. Would be like the candy man. That would be the.
I was walking into the restroom
okay.
and someone stopped me.
Okay,
and said,
okay.
Before you go in.
All right. Well, I'm relieved. No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. And it was.
Boy, would I be pissed. That's so bad. I'm sorry. Okay.
And he was European. Ha ha ha. And then, but we.
That European everywhere.
And so, long story short, too late. This has already gone on too long. He said, I'm moving to New York. I'm an attorney now. Da 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 da. We got to be friends. I did his an apartment for him in Brooklyn that he then sold over COVID and bought a house in Park City that he wants me to do and then expand. And that's why I'm going to Park City. And that was the whole reason for that story. Because
so how about you and I, as we do these trips, like, let's coordinate.
Honey, there's no one I'd rather coordinate. No one in the industry I'd rather.
Because it is a dear friend of mine who is also a New Yorker who moved there, and she's quintessential old school New York. She's like brilliant and fun and interesting and talented and like, totally worthy of all kinds of adoration. And I'm enjoying the whole well, there's so many expat communities now post COVID.
Right.
People
and I mean, I know there's the old adage of, don't work with friends or something like that.
Yeah.
But I've got to say,
I believe the adage you're looking for is don't shit where you eat.
Don't shit where you eat. Thank you.
I'm sorry. There's been a lot of salty language on these 52 weeks.
But I've actually found I've had really great experiences working with friends, or as you know, because your personality, you're very friendly. And I think it was kind of ingrained to me when I was working with Greg that you become friends with your clients generally, like if they give that energy. Yeah.
So my father always said to me, after, I worked for him summers, so he didn't really have to deal with it. And then I started working for him normally. And he said, it's really hard for me, after I was very annoyed that I didn't feel like he was giving me freedom. And I was like, what's your problem, dude? Probably did not use any of those words. Mm-hmm. And he said, you have to understand it's very difficult for me because if I send you out to a client and the client doesn't like you, I will hate them forever.
Right.
And if you screw up, I will be furious with you. So there is, so that blurry line, I appreciate maybe even all the more. I find it, even though my father was friends with a bazillion people he worked with, I tend to work for people and then become friends.
Right.
Because I want them to be able to yell at me during the process, even though I don't want to be yelled at, but you know what I mean?
Right. No, for sure. I think, yeah, I 100%. I know a lot of designers that I'm friends with that say it is only business. It is, I'm here to do your job. I'm not here to be your friend. And sometimes it is that way with some clients. Yeah. And believe me, and that is kind of, I see the joy in that. It's kind of a relief sometimes to just make it happen and then go away. But I think that when you're so passionate about something, and so, and you learn such intimate details, you know, clients, and like what goes in your bedside table, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, for sure, you feel like family when it's finished, but I just don't want to put them in a weird position.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure like you, like I, like so many people, you end up then becoming family-ish in that.
Yeah. Then they can't get rid of me.
You do the Manhattan place, then you do the Hamptons place.
Then their clients I've like called right before Christmas and by accident invited myself to their house for Christmas with my entire that was uncomfortable for everybody, but really good. So the Greg Jordan part of this, I of course, because I just got off the plane, forgot that whole. So you seem so young to me, first of all. Don't give me that googly eye. So to think of you having worked for him, was it 15 years?
No, I worked for him 10 years. I worked
10 years. That's
95 to 2005.
That's a chunk.
Yeah.
And then Greg Jordan was so lovely.
He was wonderful. He was, I've got to say, he is, and he really was a believer in the design community too.
I felt that as a person who knew him. As a person who knew him, you know, and obviously he was at the top of his game and amazing. Hello, Eddie Lee. He was such a giving, generous person to everybody.
He really was. And there are a couple of things I always remember. He always said there's enough jobs for everyone, so never get competitive. And that you get the jobs that are meant for you. And, you know, rejection is protection, you know, if someone else gets the job.
Wait, what? Rejection is protection?
Yes.
What, are we just going to believe in this just because it rhymes?
Yeah, I take what I can get. But like Rob Southern and I work in the same, and we both used to work together at Greg. And
I didn't know he worked there.
Yeah, so he was there 2 years longer than I was. And then we both went on our own about 4 months apart. And then, and we share an office. We've shared an office for the past like 6-7 years.
Now.
And yeah, and we don't share clients. We just share, which is great.
That is so cool. May I ask you what part of town you're in without getting too specific, lest a stalker find you and like stake out your digs?
They're attractive. Come on. It's the address is, no, just kidding. In Chelsea.
Okay. That is so cool. How fun.
So it's terrific. It's great. And I find it's great working in an office with not only the people that work with you, like your staff and, you know, your coworkers, but also another designer, because there's, as much as I, you know, will always say, give me your opinion, you know, because sometimes you know, you want to get an opinion from a totally neutral source. And I think, and not that we do that all the time, but there are some times.
No, but it's a luxury.
And it's like, I've been looking at this scheme or this floor plan for the past, you know, 4 weeks, and I need another input, and that's always great to have.
I do feel that way with my colleagues in the office, and we have a thing, and I was just talking about this the other day, where we sometimes, you know, when you go and you find a fabric or a piece of furniture or whatever, and you're like, this is either the coolest chicest, I am a genius thing, or I need to be fired
Or
immediately.
it's revolting.
Yeah, like I blacked out at the
either way.
D&D and I signed this out and I swear to God I didn't sign it out.
And it's true, and it's often what it's paired with, and and maybe by itself it's incredible, but like add something else and it suddenly flips the switch and it's revolting. I do that a lot. I get it
totally. We all in the office, we all fire each other all the time. Like, nope, you're fired.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
And I think that's the whole idea of. I mean, and not that I'm trying to elevate this part of the conversation.
Try to elevate it, man. We're in a urinal.
Look, I'm European, but I think that it's all about like pushing the envelope. Like it's those things where if you're not going to push it, you're always going to stay with what you're doing. And so there are those times when I'm like, am I pushing it too hard? And then that's the whole idea of like the client, you get the feedback from a client or whatever. And then that's why I like to think I'm egoless. I mean, I say that a lot, but of course we all have ego, but let's just say I'm ego light.
Yeah.
I will push things, but if a client is like, oh my God, no, I'm not going to like go home and cry.
No, of course. You have to be a real something to just countermand somebody when they've expressed their preference to live in a certain environment.
Yeah. I'm not there. There are lots of divas in the industry, but I always think there's no like need.
Yeah, but that's a level beyond.
Right.
So it's interesting that you're talking about like pushing the envelope and pushing yourself because you grew up and earned your chops in a very traditional milieu, which I can sympathize with.
Yeah.
So when you left in 2000, when did Greg die?
2005. So I left.
So you were with him.
I left in March 2005 and he died end of April. He died about a month and a half after I left. So he had heart problems and his dad actually had died young of a heart attack. So he had a heart attack. Not funny, but the thing that kind of very struck me was when I was 14 years younger than him. So when he was 48, I was 34, I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, when he passed away, I was like, of course I was crushed. He was one of my best friends in the world. He was my mentor. I loved him. And been in a kind of funny way. I was like, well, he was an older guy, and now
you're that age.
51. And I was like, oh my God, he was 48. That's so young.
He was 48?
He was 48, yeah.
Oh, that's just the worst.
Yeah, so he passed away
wow.
A month after I left.
Oof. Okay. This all got really sad right now.
I know, so let's
put that in a box and I'm going to bury it like I do with all the other sad stuff.
Exactly.
So, well, I'm glad you left under different auspices. Just like growing up and moving on.
Oh, it was very much, we had a conversation. We actually timed it. So, because Rob and I were both the senior designers there. And so we didn't want to leave him in the lurch, of course. So so Rob, who had been there longer, left first. And then I stayed to install 2 projects. And then we agreed that I would take 2 projects with me. That hadn't really started yet. So he was very, very generous.
That is very generous.
I'm extremely lucky and I'm extremely grateful to him for doing that. And so basically what happened, it was a project on Park Avenue and then a project downtown. And he basically turned them over to me. Of course we asked the clients and they said, fine.
Yeah, of course.
And but really it gave me my start. It gave me my start because then 2 years later was the
2008
later was the recession, and then I had already built up a clientele, and then I weathered it and weathered the next.
Few.
So I was very lucky. I will always be grateful for that from him.
And at what point did you find your taste like, I mean, I'm sure that growing up in that traditional, with that traditional vernacular, it was your language, like for sure. But I'm also sure that it changed and grew because I've seen it change and grow.
Mhm.
Was there a point at which you thought to yourself, oh, this is my voice? It
Yeah.
is now unadulterated.
Yes, I think so. And I think it really developed more during working with a particular client who, again, random instance, he happened to live in my building. And when,
Uh-huh. Oh,
um,
that's really scary.
no, it's
Oh my God, that's like, oh my God, that's terrible.
and so but he was doing a house in East Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very, very traditional. And we were working on it, and then in the woods in East Hampton, and then we did it. We completed it. It was amazing, and it was very of a Greg Jordan vein.
Uh-huh.
And then he got married, and then they sold that house, got another house, and wanted to modernize it.
Right. Merge two personalities.
Merge modern with traditional. And then in a way I was like, this is what I've always wanted to do. This is because before I've done modern projects and I've done
And the zeitgeist was perfect for you.
But the merging of the two was exactly what is me, I think, and then or what I love the most. And it's and I just and it inspired doing their house, inspired me over COVID to renovate my apartment. I mean, I'd renovated 6 years ago, and then I just renovated again.
So tell me about your apartment 6 years ago, and tell me about it now. But give me details. 6 years ago, you moved in. How long did it take you to do it?
It took me about 9 months. And a mutual friend of ours, Elizabeth Blitzer,
who we adore,
who is fantastic. She, so I was looking at apartments, and I looked at an apartment, and I was having lunch with her, and I was describing it to her, and she said, "Wait a minute, that's my friend's apartment. They're selling that. My friend's apartment." And which is all like,
this is bizarre.
Studded with weird.
Elizabeth is connected to everything.
Yeah. And she, so anyway, again, long story short, way too late. The funny thing is I put a bid on it, and she had said, and then she gave me in the backdoor information, and she was like, "Look," so I told
this is recorded, right? like, hold on.
No, it's all fine. It's all fine.
Okay. We love Elizabeth. We don't want to take her right now.
No one's going to hear this. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, well, your bid was like under someone else's bid, but they know that it's you, and they were worried that the other person, blah, 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 whatever." So long story short, I got the apartment. I gutted it. And
how did you reconstitute it? What it reconstituted? I'm sorry, I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Syllables.
Syllable. Was it open plan? Was it very classical?
It was not open.
Like, give me the whole.
It was chopped up. So it was a building from 1910, it was one of the first, as from what I've been told, automobile garages in New York City. So far west side, cool. Between 10th and 11th in Hell's Kitchen, and it was because everything before that was like a carriage house for horses,
Yeah.
And so, which you don't think about, but like before that, it was like horses were all over the city. So around 1910-ish is when cars started coming in. So they needed to build garages. So this was a garage.
And also, like, everything's coming in on the train and landing there.
Yeah.
And then needs to be transported.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And then and we were far west, like for all the docks and everything were right.
Yeah.
Hell's Kitchen. So, so it was a garage till the 20s, and then in the 20s to the 80s was each floor was a bakery, a commercial bakery, very strange. And then,
Over garages.
well, the garages were,
Oh, they were no longer there.
yeah, and then each floor became a bakery, and then,
So bizarre.
and that totally weird. And then after that, in the 80s, it became co-ops.
They went from rolls to rolls.
Rolls to rolls, baby.
I can't. It was terrible.
That was a good one. I love a play on words. So yeah, and then the 80s they did like an 80s renovate, like a real bad.
Right. Like milk glass. And,
well, drop ceilings, like
yeah.
the ceiling. So I'll tilt up.
Was it all like turquoise and
No,
clay?
It wasn't that. It was just not 80s like Miami Vice 80s, but 80s cheaply done. You know,
I don't even know what to say. That's like even worse.
So in other words, they're like, I think I have like 12.5-foot ceilings, and they lowered them to like 8.5-foot ceilings so the air would work better. I'm like, that makes no sense. So
in what universe does that work better?
Yeah, so I ripped all that out as soon as I
the Smurfiverse, maybe. Yeah. Wow.
Exactly. So yeah, so then I renovated again over COVID, just kind
of. So no, but what was the look? What was the decoration? Did you have curtains? Did you have skirted furniture? Was it super butch? What's happening? What's going on, man?
Now or then?
Then
it was a little, so then I was on a bigger budget. So then it was a sofa that I had done in the Hampton Show House. That just
yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. I think we all know that we've got to do beautiful show house stuff because it might end up with us.
It might end up in our apartment. And it was basically a mishmash of things that clients didn't want. I recovered. I mean, it was great. I was super comfortable. I was thrilled with it. But it wasn't what I would have done given my druthers on my, so now.
And how old were you during that renovation?
44.
Okay. All right. So suitably grown up. Perhaps you know your mind, but maybe not.
No, I knew my mind. I knew what I wanted, but I couldn't afford what I wanted.
Right, but there's also that pressure when you first observe yourself as adult to be adult.
Right. Well, actually, strangely enough, this renovation made me feel like an adult. Like I finally feel grown up now.
Wow.
Enough. I mean, I'm 51. You'd think I'd feel old already, but it just hit. It just hit.
Yeah.
So there was something, and it's funny. The older I've gotten, the more comfortable I am with trusting my gut of what I've loved all along, even when.
Well, certainly for yourself.
For myself, oh, for sure. I mean, with the client, I'm 1,000% confident in what I like to give them. I mean, of course, we all have doubts, but like I'll work in all styles. We'll all, modern, traditional, ski house, beach house, and I feel very confident in doing that work. Yeah. There's something about doing it for yourself that
totally,
in a way, and you shouldn't, because of course it's for you, so you should make it for yourself and be comfortable. But of course, you judge you. So a little bit, I would second guess things, and now I was just pretty fearless in, I think, with what I wanted, and just did it. And
so, when during COVID did you start doing things?
It was I was thinking of it all during early COVID, so 2020, and then January 2021, I reached out to a contractor that I use often and asked him, when he'd be available, and he said, "We're so busy with everything."
He was like, "Never."
Yeah, he's like, "We're so." So he said, get everything lined up and get all your materials, and then we can start like May 1st. So we did.
Which is great because little did you know the materials were going to be in great shortage momentarily.
Right, exactly. So bought tile, bought everything that I needed, and then it was pretty much May, June, July, half of July, living in like Airbnbs
Yeah.
and feeling glamorous, living in a hotel until I got the bill, and then I was like, what? What was I?
That's ambition.
But it was really, it was fun. It was kind of
Yeah.
fun living as a tourist in your own city. You like living.
Oh,
not,
yeah.
And
That must have been amazing. It
yeah,
must have been kind of like shaken up and set down and kind of like figure out where you are all over again.
yeah.
Where are you from originally?
Originally from Maryland, from outside of Baltimore.
Okay,
And
I love Baltimore.
well, I mean, I do like Baltimore. Now I like it more than I did back then. All
Sure.
I ever wanted when I was there was to get out, and I always wanted to be in New York. Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to be in New York, and to this, and I moved
Because of the lore.
the lure
It's
and
like that's where you go to make it big. Like were you watching a
or
lot of Broadway musicals?
like yeah,
You know?
less to make it big and more because I just felt, you know, especially, I mean, I was born in 70, and yeah, I mean, I think growing up gay and
Sure.
you are, and you just think that or I
You
thought,
want to go to the promised land, the land
what
of freedom.
place where people were, where everyone was. I just felt like there's every stripe and color and nationality and language, and it just felt so cultured and so
Yeah.
alive and so non-judgmental that it felt like the place to be. And
Yeah, New York is such an outsized character in everybody's imagination.
right,
It's
like,
not a location, it's an actual character.
well, it's a character in every movie. It is one of,
Yeah.
and you know what, that's why, you know, people film things and, you know, whatever, but yeah, but again, I think I was very drawn to New York. So after college I took a brief pit stop in Atlanta and then came here.
Okay, quick question. Have we lived up to your, as a native, have we lived up to your expectations?
Yes. What is the, so I'm going to misquote, but it's the E.B. White quotation. Have you ever heard that? And it's like that there are three types of New Yorkers.
No, I don't. I don't know this.
I,
I don't recognize
after all this, because I'll have to look it up and text it. I will send it to you after this. But it's really, really.
So wait, let me get this straight. You are not afraid to malign Elizabeth Blitzer while recorded, but you are filled with trepidation about getting an E.B. White quotation wrong.
Well, no, it's something, I will, to paraphrase,
Yeah.
something like there are three New Yorkers. One is the New Yorker of the commuter that gives it its pulse of coming in and out of the city every day, and it's kind of a rhythm. The second is the New Yorker of the native, who gives it its solidity and tradition. Who've like you have roots here, and you give it a history. And then the third is the New York of like the seeker, someone who sees New York as a beacon and comes here searching for something, be it for career or
Sure. Or
love
just
or
whatever.
what.
So I hate to.
And that gives it its like its, and that kind of, you know, gives it a little bit of its mystique, you know.
Yeah. Though I disagree with that. It's a nice quotation though. But I'm and actually I talk about
And
this
you
a
can
lot.
be all three.
Yeah. Oh wait, I mean that is so not a Baltimorean. You just did this. That is a European three.
Well,
This is an American three.
my mom's German.
Okay, because that's my kids trying to feel at one with their Europeanness are all about the three. I think sometimes I get this from them too, but I'm the only person in the family who does that. Anyway, I have often talked on these lives about how I almost, well, I mean, every grown up, I think, maybe in our profession, maybe all professions, but definitely in ours, because it's about artifice, feels like an imposter.
Oh yeah.
And also because we're trying on different styles for our clients, you know, it's almost like being a medium, though that sounds ridiculous, but it is sort of like that. But I frequently feel like I haven't earned New York because I was born here. that New York is for those who will take it. Like, I really think I feel like you are the quintessential New Yorker, that it is this beacon that speaks to you, and you came here. And so thank you. Thank you for that, Eddie. Moving along. So now your apartment, now that what was your program when you redid it? Like, did you redo floors? Did you take down walls? What was the whole,
So
what was the scope?
I had a bright blue fireplace wall from clay tile, clay tile in Sausalito. They do that beautiful hand glazed brick.
Uh-huh.
And I was pretty fearless then too. And I did it in cobalt blue, and it's 12
Cobalt
foot.
or Eve Klein?
And
Eve
so that
Klein or more marine?
pretty cobalt, like the blue in this painting back there.
Okay.
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 So, and at the time I had a white kitchen because it was, again, I was kind of doing what I could do back then.
Sure.
Not that I couldn't have painted it a different color, but whatever. It was what it was.
That's an investment.
And
to paint a kitchen a color, you better know your mind.
so, so I basically now, did you ever see The Lost Boys?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. That's like our generation, where it's like dark and moody, and it was like that. Like they lived in the.
So wait, you have a cave?
So
You're
now
hanging upside down in a cave?
I live in vampires. People are like, "What does your apartment look like now?" I'm like, if there were a vampire's den that kind of crossed with Studio 54, and they had a library, that's where I live.
Oh my God. I want to go. Has it been published? No, because you just did it.
I just finished it. So
what kind of light do you have that you could indulge? You've got major Western light all day.
No, I have Northern light.
I too have Northern light. Cruel Northern light.
I have Northern light, but I strategically have placed mirrors to capture the sunrise and sunset. So
yeah. Wow, that sounds so cool. Okay. That is something that you need to be your age to do, in my opinion. Like you gotta feel yourself to be able to.
I'm feeling myself, and
throw down like that.
And it's funny, and I finally took my own advice, because with clients sometimes I'll say, well, what colors, what moves you, and they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I've seen you in navy. All you ever wear is navy. Or I look in their closet and I say, all of this, you are always in whatever. And then oftentimes we pull from that inspiration, and they're like, you're right. I never even thought about that. And what I'm wearing.
But I mean, I don't want to dress as my sofa. I mean, look like a chair.
I wear black all the time. So basically my apartment that I'm looking at right now is like charcoal black. And
oh, you're in your apartment right now. Well, I love the bookcase behind you. Is that Napoleon III? What's happening?
Oh no, that's an open door opening. That's an opening.
It's beautiful.
We're doing a little work in the office, and they're drilling and hammering, so I thought it wouldn't be good for Instagram Live. So
No, definitely not. Like my kids and all the fracas happening back there.
And
did you architecturally? What's the plan of your apartment? Do you have rooms?
Yeah. So I didn't change walls this time. I gutted it the last time.
But you gutted it and rebuilt it, or you gutted it and you left it open?
I gutted it and rebuilt it the last time.
Okay.
And because it had, it was one of those plans that was typical, like builder special, like the bathroom opened up and like to the common area, and I'm like, you don't want that.
There's nothing special about that building.
No, there's glamorous. Like, what if you're having a dinner party and you're like, oops, flush, So I did a little vestibule, which is through that Georgian case.
Yeah.
Branching out into the bedroom and the bathroom to kind of give you a little space before you go into your project.
I applaud.
Thank you. Yeah. So now I feel like a grown up. I guess to sum it all up, I feel like.
Yeah. I know you work in all different milieus. What are some of the? I also know that when you're asked this question, if you're a decorator designer, your mind will suddenly go blank.
I'm gonna go.
When people are like, "What are you working on?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I have no work. I don't know what you're talking about." Like, I can't think of a single thing. But have there been some projects that come to mind,
Mhm.
understanding that your mind will draw a blank, that have been especially exciting in the past, decade? Like, what have been some real
Yeah.
moments?
So I, um, again, and it's funny, like, as you know, in this business, everything is through this person, you met that person who you suddenly work on that person. So one of the clients that, going back to, I love making a connection, going back to the Greg Jordan, one of the clients that I took of the two was, I don't know if you're on, Jorge Mora, who was this wonderful, wonderful, has become a very dear, close friend of mine, um, who was working, I was the designer who was working on his project at Greg Jordan. I took him with me. Since then, have done like 4 other projects for him. Through him, met this wonderful couple um, in who lived in his building in Soho. While we were redesigning the Soho apartment, midway through, they decided to move and bought a house on a cliffside in La Jolla.
Like move wholesale, they abandoned the
They
Soho project?
apartment, but they just decided
Just
that
that their main residence was
their
moving.
main residence,
Okay.
and I mean, their New York apartment was amazing and that.
I know. I was just thinking, I was stressing out on your behalf with the idea of like, oh, we're moving.
Yeah, and it was, and they wanted to move in like a year in the La Jolla place and got it. So, but it was challenging and wonderful, and of course, I'm blanking now at the architect who originally did it, which was an architect in the 50s. Oh my God! And I just remembered the other connection. I swear to God, I was not thinking of this when I started the story.
Yeah.
But so it was an architect. Of course, I can't remember the name of the architect.
I know, word retrieval.
But
Rough.
it was a 1950s kind of big Southern California architect who had built this home in the 50s. Then someone like bastardized it in the 70s. Then your dad worked on it in the 80s,
And where are we?
and was published in Architectural Digest in the 80s.
Wait. Where are we? What location?
La Jolla.
Oh, I totally know what you mean.
So it's La Jolla, California.
Who is that? I do know that because you sent me pictures.
Yeah,
while it was happening. Yeah.
And so and that, I've got to say, I was so thrilled being able to
take all of his work down.
No,
I'm kidding.
because what was it? He had already fixed some of the 70s stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff in the 70s.
No, I was teasing in any case.
And he put in this genius bar, like this bar that was so brilliant. He did this bar that I'd never seen before. And I'd seen a sunken bar before.
Yeah.
But
oh, wow.
The sunken.
That is, the idea of my father in a sunken bar is so great.
But the coolest part of it is then there is the bar that wrapped around in a big L or a U, I can't remember. But then at the edge of the bar, your dad did a padded leather butt rest. So because the bar is sunken and because it was just like at your butt height, so people could just rest their butt at the bar.
That is so crazy.
Because it was too low to do bar.
Yeah.
So it was
I love how sybaritic that is. Like, oh, I'm tired, waiting for my drink.
Peel me my grape. It was so fantastic. And I was like, this is from the mind.
I love that.
The mind of genius. And he did these really amazing
No. We're still talking about you, though. So tell me about.
He did wooden travertine floors that we kept and layered on top of.
Cool. It is so fun when you can have, when it's not all a tear out and a dust up and a set on fire with malice situation.
Right. Oh no, it was a combination of highlighting the amazing things that your dad did in like the late 80s with bringing back to life a lot of the things that the original architect did in the 50s. Yeah. And then layering.
Hard to imagine how those two things converge.
It was
when I look at malachite, or I look at like what's that dark brown marble? Emperador.
Dark Emperador.
I
That
am
front building. Yeah.
I am in 89
Yeah.
or 92. You
Yeah.
know, there's just some or like Crema Marfil. Like that was
Yeah.
our Calicotta.
Yeah. When I first started at Greg and we were working in a couple of apartments that it was like a David East, like I think we had
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
an after David Easton or something like that. And I can't tell you how many like dark Imperador bathrooms. And then there's
With
all
mahogany, it's the husband's
maroon.
bathroom, and
There's also a maroon marble that I can't even remember because no one's used it since then. But it was so like maroon with tan veining. Anyway, but I've got to say though, when I see that, I do feel a little warm and happy inside. Not that I want to redo it all, but
I see malachite and I want to instantly kill myself.
not
I feel
malachite.
a suicidal wash of horror. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny, like marble, it the things that date themselves the most are the things that are the hardest to take out.
Right.
And so people don't.
Right.
And then it looks like a crazy sore thumb.
Right.
What is the marble in your house, by the way? I have amethyst slabs on my bedside tables. So I should shut up because that is wackadoodle.
I love that though.
It's pretty crazy.
I have I've replaced the cobalt
Yeah.
blue
Yeah.
with
But that sounds like a little bit ahead of your time with the cobalt blue hand finished tiles.
I mean, it was pretty amazing. I've got to say.
A little, yeah.
But
look, somebody just said Rojo Alicante, the dark maroon marble from the 80s. Thank you,
That's
Pook.
what it was.
Thank you, Pook.
Thank you.
Okay, so now?
So now it's basaltino, you know, the black, and so we just and it's raked basaltino, so it has, because I have like a charcoal grass cloth from Philip Jeffries everywhere else, and it has the kind of those horizontal lines. So I did this raked basaltino, so it almost looks like the stone is mimicking the grass cloth.
So you're living within a single organic thing.
That basically is vampiric. Yes.
I have a great fondness for. I had a black room as a 13-year-old, and I have a bandwidth for black interiors. Do you know Otzi Charles's bedroom?
No.
This like fabulous doyen. Yes, you look beautiful. Bye. He's just going out to a
What's up behind you? We want to see.
No. He does not want to be seen. But he does look beautiful. Anyway, Otzi Charles had this, and when I met her with my father, I've got to say I was like in my 13 or something, and she was already a grande dame, and she had a black bedroom. And she's in that category with, sister and like these great old dames. Black has its place for sure. Black interiors are hot.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, looking around, it's more charcoal than black, but you get the idea.
Tomato.
Exactly.
So, what is your bathroom marble?
So my bathroom marble. So it's not It's not marble. So what I did is I bandboxed all of the walls in Caesar stone in like 3-inch off-white Caesar stone, and
nice.
Inside all of it is mirror. You see
sort of Albert Hadley meets Francis Elkins, David Adler,
including the ceiling. So you see every angle of every inch of your body.
So wait, this is the Studio 54 component that you were referring to?
Yes.
Yeah. You had me until you mentioned what you just mentioned. It's funny. It's like, here we are. It's 5:52, and we've kind of circled back to where we started in the bathroom with your friend. I feel like somebody once defined comedy to me as like a teacher in high school as a story that it begins and it ends up in the same place. So if you will.
5:52. I mean, honestly, I feel like we've been talking for 10 minutes. We've been like.
We have been. Nobody else feels that way, but you and I feel that.
Everyone else is like, when?
Everybody else has grown old and has thrown their devices at the wall. And actually, they're not even watching us, so we can continue. So do you, now that you have had your major, I mean, you had your major statement with your apartment, but now you've had your major statement with your apartment because you're the age you are and you've gone for it and you've swung for the fences. Do you share any of that with your clients? Like, do any of the people that you work for get to have things that are in your apartment?
Yeah, so I just tried to. So I did slabs of brownish slate on my bedroom headboard wall. So it's basically a slate wall. Yeah, so it's pretty. I've always loved slate. It's a little. That's where the Game of Thrones part comes in.
Yeah.
We almost did it at a project I'm working on in Florida, but she has 15-foot ceilings and the wall is like 24 feet wide. So 15 by 24 of slate was a little intense.
Yeah. Also, like acoustically, that's tough. How
Sorry.
do you combat the, what are your curtains?
It's a Larson linen, and
That is so great sounding.
yeah, and all the millwork is painted chocolate brown and
What's the chocolate brown it's painted?
mink, Benjamin Moore mink.
Do we know what the number is?
I have my computer right here.
Yeah, please, because my Benjamin Moore dark brown is HC68, but it's got a lot of gray in it. I would love to know who doesn't need to know a great dark brown color? Oof.
So mink is 2112.
20, oh, so like a palindrome, 2112. A totally symmetrical number. Okay, everybody, 2112. We're all copying Eddie Lee.
It's great, and it works. It's a beautiful brown. I mean, it has a drop of red in it, which I generally don't go for, but the room is very dark, so it really
right. You don't register it. It's all that cruel northern light.
Yes.
Another thing that I love, having done these talks for over a year now, little funny things pop up as leitmotifs, and one of them that I find fascinating is that when we work for somebody else, when the job is done, the job is done. But when we work for ourselves,
Yes.
there's no stop.
Right.
Have you stopped, or are you still going?
There's only two more things, I think, and then, two more major things, and then I'm done.
And you're really going to stop?
Yeah, I mean, it may evolve, but
well, tomato. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, it will stop.
I mean, you won't get a new sofa.
Yeah, no, I won't get this. I'm installing like another, like a big wall, a big sconce in a wall that it is a little dark. And meanwhile, we're talking about an apartment that's like 1,000 square feet. It's not your, I've been to your apartment. It's not your apartment.
Yeah, well, I mean, I lived in under 600 square feet for so long.
Yeah. So
I feel totally fine owning, but my rooms are squirrely and small.
I could do a Wonder Woman twirl and see the entire apartment, so.
But it'll be an amazing Wonder Woman twirl.
It would be good.
It would be good.
Saw the train go by behind you.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Hi.
Love that. But yeah, there's that, and our wonderful friend Jonah, who I'm sure you know too, at Artistic Frame, is making me fantastic counter stools, because I've always I've ever had. I do the dining table at counter height.
Yeah.
Or bar. Yeah, I did this one at counter height.
So it's almost like the butt rest.
Exactly. Because I always feel like when you have it at a dining table, and I'm doing that so that's another thing I'm doing with a client, I have different Florida right now. I've been working a lot in Florida now. Is that I feel like when your dining table is at counter or bar height, it always feels a little bit like a party, even if it's just like two people. Like it feels like it's a little more fun than
so the table's high and the chairs are high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But do your chairs touch? I mean, your chairs clearly touch the ground. Do your feet touch the ground from your chairs?
I mean, if you were 6'6", maybe, but not me.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm 5'10". Swinging on them.
Okay, that is such a. I love hearing that. I am going to go forth into the night with that in my pocket, and I'm going to look at all table heights now. So they're like what, 36?
Well, the table's at 36.
The table's at 36.
It's a little tricky doing the table. The table at 42 is a little too high sometimes.
Yeah. I totally get that.
If it's your only table, I would only go to 36. If you have more than one table, I would do one at 42, because that really, it feels like, like a sharing table at a restaurant or something like that.
But if you did a 42 and a 36, would they then be not matched? Like if you're gonna, what?
Well, I'm saying if you had a regular 30-inch high table in your dining room.
No, but if you went and you just said if you had two, you would do it one higher. Would they be a matched pair?
If I had a big apartment with a proper like dining room, like another room where I just had whatever, like a bar.
I understand the concept of a dining room.
No, I would have like a regular dining table at 30.
Yeah.
And then and then I would do like a 42.
Okay, in a totally different place. Okay, got it. So you're creating a different atmosphere.
Different atmosphere. Since I only have one, I cut the difference and did 36.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Where do you want to work next that you haven't worked?
So, lovely clients of mine who I have worked for in Manhattan and San Francisco have mentioned that they're looking in Maui, and I am just counting the days until I get a phone call.
Have you ever been to Hawaii?
I have, and I love it.
I have not, so I'm like
amazing.
So excited for you.
I went to a friend's 40th birthday in Kauai, and it was like 20 of us, and it was so much fun, and it was like full of beautiful scenery. And then if you're into outdoor things, there's all of
I'm not.
Well, if you're into outdoor, flying by a pool.
Yeah, exactly. If by into outdoor things you mean looking at them, I'm there.
And great food, great drinks, great everything. It's gorgeous. And everyone. I've had a lovely experience there. So the thought of working in a house in Maui is just pretty.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing.
Okay, as it is 6 o'clock on the dot, I am going to say to you, two things. Good luck. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that you get the job in Maui. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the next door neighbors hire me so that we can, because we're doing the Utah thing together.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you and I are going back and forth to Utah together in future, and hopefully we will add Maui to our parade.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm sorry I blew in and I'm blowing out. So great to see you. Somebody wanted to know who that painting is behind you. Whose is that painting behind you?
So the funny thing is, I drew Design on a Dime. Ford Hunneford does. Who's
yes, of course.
So Ernie De La Torre.
Yes.
Room. That was in Ernie De La Torre's, and I'm mortified. And as I set this up, I said, I bet you she's going to ask me who that painting is. And I forgot. So give me 1 sec. Can I?
Sure. Absolutely. Please.
Well, I kind of, you know what? I'll type it to you.
Okay. Put it in the comments so people can find it.
Okay. I'll put it in the comments.
But it's, you've given, there's been a bunch of gems that you've given us. Another one is buying it at show houses and Design on a Dime and all. That's they're great resources to find really special things. Design on a Dime is so wonderful, and Ford is such a humanitarian. They've raised millions and millions and millions of dollars for people living with HIV housing, and it's fantastic. It's amazing. All right, well, on that, lots of love. Speak to you soon, and can't wait for us to schedule our next trip. All right. Thank you so much. This has been so fun. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye, honey.